Tony Kwok for Word TV here alongside Paul Semtex Daley. Paul, just a few weeks away from Bellator 158. A couple of weeks back you got the all-important news that Koscheck was out of the fight. I mean, first reactions to that, can you talk us through how that come about?
Yeah, my first reactions were I kind of expected it, so it was like, I thought so. You know, he looked very nervous at the pre-fight press conference, and there was something that just he wasn't sure of himself, you know. And I think when you're entering in such a dangerous fight with a guy like me, you need to be 100% sure in your own ability, and I don't think that was there for him.
Do you put that down to the fact you guys have fought before, or is it his age catching up on him? He's not been as active as he once was when he fought you.
I think it's a combination of both. Obviously, we fought before, so he knows my strength, how I felt, how I moved, my speed back then when I was less experienced. And obviously, seeing my evolution, seeing the victories I've had, seeing the way my weaknesses have gotten so much stronger. Coupled with the fact that he's old and he probably hasn't trained for a while and he's coming off he's lost his last 5 fights. I think that and the way he seen I was fired and pumped for this fight sort of all muddled together and sort of had an effect on his final decision.
So you get the news he's pulled out, and like you said, you kind of expected it. You saw him at the press conference and stuff. You get the news you're now fighting Douglas Lima. I mean, what's the initial reaction? You're now fighting a guy who's much more similar style to you, former champion, so arguably, you know, a win away from a potential title shot. So what was the immediate reaction from?
Well, I'm excited. I like these kinds of fights. You know, with Koscheck. There wasn't the element of danger. I was confident I was going to destroy him. It would have been a fairly simple game plan to execute. With Lima, although in the same manner I'm extremely confident I'm going to beat him and we have an effective game plan, there is the element of danger that he kicks hard, he punches hard, and is a jiu-jitsu black belt. And he's an exciting fighter. So away from, you know, I'm excited to fight him because he's such an exciting fighter. I know that the fight is going to be one that people are looking forward to.
And what did you make in his last performance? Obviously, he lost the title.
Yeah.
How did you sort of score that fight? Obviously, it was a unanimous decision. But how did you see that happening ahead of that fight?
Yeah, I did. I was one of a few. I think before, because I fought on the same card. The Bellator staff was interviewing fighters and calling the prediction, and I was the only one that called Koscheck to win the fight. Away from being a fighter, I love the sport, so I watch a lot of fights, I analyse things, and I could see that there was a good chance that this guy was going to win. You know, he was strong, he was athletic, he was unorthodox, he had a good all-round game. And I think with Lima being out for so long with a knee injury, having to cut so much weight as well, it being a 5-round fight, I just, you know, all the odds were stacked in the favour of the Russian.
And again, obviously, he's taking this fight on short notice. He hasn't been active for over a year. Well, it'll be a day and a year when you actually get around to fighting. I think he fought on the 17th last year. I mean, are the odds stacked in your favour in that regard? Him taking the fight on late notice, and you're in your hometown, you've got a lot of support and stuff?
Yeah, not just that, but although we're both strikers, I think my style is terrible for him. I'm not going to say too much apart from that because it might divulge of what we've got planned for. But he has been out a long time. He has been suffering from knee injuries. He still has to cut a lot of weight. So a lot of the negatives that are against him for the fight in Koscheck are still against him in this fight. Plus, with what I'm going to bring to the table, what we're working on.
And you mentioned earlier you've been training with some high-level wrestlers. Yeah. Obviously, you know, coming up, you've been a striker throughout, and there was always that how, you know, if you come up against a wrestler, they're going to look to take you down and diminish your sort of striking. Has that been a conscious decision to constantly sort of improve your wrestling? How are you finding it? Are you enjoying that aspect more? Was it an element of your game when you first started out that you didn't enjoy as much, or was it just a case that you wasn't as exposed to wrestling?
No, I loved wrestling. I've always loved wrestling. The jiu-jitsu I wasn't so much a fan of, but one of my first sporting icons in MMA that I looked up to was Tito Ortiz, so I had all of his instructionals and a lot of them were wrestling based, so I've been a fan of wrestling throughout my career. Having the opportunity to work with a lot of wrestlers frequently has really evolved my game, and people don't see much of my offensive wrestling. People don't know. People that I train with are very surprised how well I can wrestle. And I'm not, when I'm training, I have these coaches in. They're not your jiu-jitsu guy who's become a wrestler or your MMA guy who's become a wrestler. I'm training with elite Olympic level wrestlers all the time. I'm training wrestling. So yeah, it does surprise a lot of people. And maybe it'll play a factor in the fight against Lima, but I think a lot of people will be shocked if ever I have to use my wrestling.
And obviously, all things going well, you beat Douglas Lima at Bellator 158. What is next to you? They put the mic in front of you after the fight. Are you calling for that title shot? Do you feel like you finally deserve to earn that title shot?
Yeah, the title shot should be given to me, and I would hope it will be. Failing that, I'm after big fights. Vanderlei, I want Vanderlei Silva. That's a big fight. Koscheck, I want Josh Koscheck. Ben Henderson, all these big names, all these guys that have rode high in the rankings of the other promotion, the UFC. I want those guys. I want to test myself against those guys. I've had recent experience that would lead me to believe that these guys that are ranked so highly by the UFC are not up to much.